How a black homeless man became a millionaire and met Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Lucas stepped from this sleek black car into the chaos of downtown, the city pulse thrumming under his polished shoes. He wore success like armor, tailored suit, gold watch glinting in the morning sun, expensive cologne mixing with the scent of street food and gasoline. He'd built an empire from scratch, or so he told himself, but today, all that confidence cracked. Lucas? The voice was weak, cracked like dry pavement. He froze. There, slumped against a dirty brick wall, was Joe. Same rough hands, same crooked grin. But the light had left his eyes. Jeans ragged, jacket soaked from last night's rain, face unwashed for days. Homeless, a ghost from Lucas's past. Lucas swallowed hard. His chest tightened, breath shallow. He'd worked hard to erase this old chapter. Joe was a reminder of who Lucas once was, the boy nobody cared about. Now, Joe's glance held something else, something darker. Remember the warehouse on 5th? The night everything changed? Joe said, voice low, a whisper that barely cut through the city's roar. Lucas's hands trembled. The memory burned, a crime, a secret buried deep. Joe witnessed it all, something Lucas couldn't face, yet. I saw what happened, Joe breathed. You don't know the half of it. The crowd moved past. Street vendors shouted, sirens blared, footsteps pounded the pavement. It all faded as Lucas leaned in. Dust motes floated in the sunlight, settling on Joe's tangled hair like ashes. He looked fragile, but dangerously steady. What do you mean? Lucas's voice cracked, a mix of anger and fear. Joe smirked, but it wasn't the easy laughter of old friends. It was a warning. That night wasn't just bad luck. It was a choice. Yours. The words slammed into Lucas like a fist. He stumbled back, heart racing, sweat prickling his neck. His empire, his identity, everything might shatter if that secret slipped out. The crime Joe referenced wasn't just a scared kid's mistake. It was a fracture in Lucas's true story. Tears burned behind Lucas's eyes. He clenched his fists, nails biting into his palm. All those years fighting for power and respect now felt empty. A lie built on forgotten truths and guilt. Around them, people gawked. Some whispered, "Who's that man?" Others shook their heads, disgust or pity mixing on their faces. The city that celebrated Lucas's rise now held its breath for the fall. Joe looked at him, a flicker of something softer breaking through the hardened shell. You don't have to run from this, but if you stay blind, it'll destroy you. Lucas stood frozen, torn between denial and the ugly, aching truth clawing at his soul. His family legacy, this fortune, it might all be tied to those dark days. Suddenly, his phone buzzed in his pocket, shattering the tense silence. He pulled it out, eyes wide. The caller ID flashed the unknown number. Dot. His hand shook. What if this call was the key to unlocking Joe's secret, or worse, exposing the crime that linked their lives forever? Lucas looked back at Joe, who simply nodded and faded into the crowd like a shadow. Lucas's mind raced. Could he face the past? Or would everything he'd built crumble at the cost of the truth? The city roared around him, indifferent. But inside Lucas, a storm had just begun. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And since you're here, drop a powerful like that really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact! Lucas's heart raced as he stared at his phone, the unknown number glowing ominously in his palm. The air felt thick, heavy with his secret and the reminder of who he used to be. He glanced at Joe again, but the homeless man had vanished, swallowed by the crowd. Just another lost soul in a city filled with them. Then, without warning, a sharp scream cut through the chaos. It came from a nearby alley, raw and primal. Heads turned, including Lucas's. Fear wrapped around him like a vice. He forced himself to move, drawn toward the sound as if it were a beacon. He pushed through the throng, the sights and sounds of the city blurring into a dull roar. The smell of sweat and street food collided with something far worse, something he could not identify. He felt a chill creeping up his spine. As he rounded the corner, he stopped dead. His breath caught. There, lying in a pool of dark liquid, was a figure, a young woman, her clothes ripped and stained. Shiny shards of glass glistened around her. She was just lying here, a passerby shouted, his face pale. I think she's... But Lucas could barely hear him. His body went cold. The woman's eyes, wide open, staring, held a fear that sent a wave of nausea crashing over him. It twisted around his chest, squeezing tighter with each breath. And then he noticed something. A tattoo on her wrist. A small, jagged lightning bolt. His heart stopped. Joe? Ha 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 ha! The name escaped his lips before he could think. The echo reverberated in his mind, shaking loose memories once locked away. He staggered back, mind racing. Only days earlier, he and Joe had talked about the same tattoo, their shared mark of survival, their bond from those dark times. Joe had called it a reminder of their past, a promise they made to each other, to never forget. Lucas had buried that connection, but here it was, screaming back at him in the most brutal way possible. As the crowd gasped and looked on in horror, the sirens blared in the distance, growing louder. But there was something else. In the shadows of the alley, a figure emerged, dressed in a dark hoodie, face obscured. The crowd recoiled, but Lucas's eyes locked onto the figure. A jolt firing down his spine. Lucas! The figure yelled, voice coated with urgency. It was a familiar voice, one he hadn't heard in years. It's not what you think. Lucas's mind spiraled. The unmistakable silhouette was Joe, his face twisted in fear, emotions churning, pleading for understanding. But as quick as he recognized him, there was a flash, a glint of metal reflecting the sun. Lucas jolted. The figure lunged toward him, hands outstretched. "Stop!" he shouted instinctively. But it was too late. A deafening bang echoed down the alley. Time froze. The world narrowed to that moment. The sound, the look of shock on Joe's face, and the way Lucas's heart felt like it was shattering into a million pieces. He could barely breathe. What just happened? The crowd erupted, a mix of screams, gasps, and chaos. As Lucas stumbled back, his mind reeled. Did Joe just get down? A voice shouted. But he was already moving, adrenaline pumping through his veins. He was a millionaire in a tailored suit. Yet in that moment, he felt raw, vulnerable, haunted by the ghosts of his past. His empire, his choices, all spiraling out of control. And as the sirens grew louder, he couldn't shake the question. Was Joe the monster, or was he just the man he used to be? Suddenly, everything Lucas thought he knew shattered like glass, splintering into fear and uncertainty. What was the truth behind Joe? What dark secrets lay tangled in their past? The alley vanished in a blur as chaos erupted around him. The storm inside Lucas was far from over. Lucas blinked rapidly, heart pounding like a drum in his chest. The buzzing phone broke the hold Joe had on him, pulling him back to reality. Nothing. Sweat dripped from his brow, mingling with the noise of the city chaos, dulling the memories, knocking to break out. He answered the call, voice tight. Hello? Static crackled on the line. Then a low, familiar voice emerged. Lucas, it's me. You need to listen. Lucas's stomach dropped. It was Sarah, his childhood friend, the one person who knew exactly what had happened that night. What's wrong? He asked, dread curling in his gut. Meet me at the old warehouse. Now, she ordered, urgency leaking through the words. Before he could respond, the line went dead. The silence echoed, bouncing off the walls of his mind. Why would she want to meet now? A million thoughts spiraled inside him. The warehouse on Fifth? The very place Joe had just reminded him of. The secrets buried there felt like chains tightening around him. Lucas looked back at Joe, but the man had vanished into the sea of people. The world swirled around him, faces blurred, but in his chest, a fire ignited. He bolted to his car, barely aware of the pounding feet behind him, the sounds of the city fading into the background. The drive felt like an eternity. All he could gather were fleeting images of the past, laughter, friendship, the innocence that shattered that night. He parked hurriedly, barely noticing the cracked pavement underfoot. The warehouse loomed ahead, its once vibrant paint peeling like old memories. As Lucas pushed the door open, the scent hit him. Dust, dampness, and something darker. A reminder of what he wanted to forget. He stepped inside, heart pounding. The dim light flickered above like uncertainty. Sarah, he called, each word dragging the tension tighter. No response, just silence and shadows. His eyes searched the corners as fear crept in. Then a noise, a soft whimper. The sound pulled him. He turned sharply, breath catching in his throat. There, in the far corner, lay Sarah. Blood soaked her shirt. Her face was pale as bone. "Sarah!" he yelled, rushing to her side. Panic shot through him. What happened? Her eyes fluttered open, glazed yet fierce. They know, Lucas, she gasped, wincing in pain. Joe, he has proof. Proof! The words stuck in his throat, laced with ice. What do you mean? About that night? You have to trust me. She coughed, each breath labored, like life was slipping away from her. He recorded it, Lucas. Everything. Your deal. The real truth. A crack of adrenaline surged through him. The morning's world, his success, his life, was unraveling like thread pooling on the floor. Where is he? But Sarah's gaze faded, the light dimming as she muttered, "You need to face it, the four." An explosion of sound shattered the stillness. A loud crash echoed from the entrance. Lucas's heart raced. He turned just as men burst through the door. They wore black hoodies, faces obscured. "Get down!" someone shouted. Lucas barely registered before they rushed him. He dove into the shadows, adrenaline sparking every nerve. The clang of boots echoed against the concrete, footsteps hunting him like wolves. Chaos erupted. Lucas's breath came in sharp gasps. He scanned for an escape, but the walls felt like they were closing in. He spotted Sarah, the life stripping from her eyes. "Stay with me!" he screamed. But the words felt hollow, as he realized he was now a prisoner of his own past. As the thugs swept closer, Lucas's mind spiraled. His life, the carefully built facade, the empire, it all hinged on a dark secret, now clawing its way back to the surface. Every choice he'd made, every lie he'd told, still echoed in Sarah's last breath. The truth hung in the air like a dense fog, threatening to suffocate him. Then, amidst the heavy silence, a chilling thought struck him. Was he ever truly free? The chaos swelled, and Lucas edged against the wall, fists clenching. The very ground beneath him felt alive, ready to swallow him whole. Everything and everyone was suddenly in question. In the clutches of instability, he faced the truth that swirled like a storm inside him. He didn't know if he could handle what came next. Would he face the consequences, or would he let everything fall apart? Lucas pressed back against the wall, heart racing. The thugs moved closer, shadows swirling like predators. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but he couldn't leave Sarah. "Get out!" he gasped, voice tight. The urgency pulled at him, adrenaline sparking through his veins. He glanced back at her, desperation clawing at his chest. Blood pooled underneath her. Her breath was shallow, each exhale whispering of fear and fragility. "Lucas! Dios, es que te niegas. Sálvate. Oye, el golpe del acelerador, su viento, estaba patomen. Una inversión rápida. Despertado. Lucas estague, momentáneamente blindo. Se mueve muy pronto a ver las figuras oscuras pausar un momento. El cuerpo empezó, adrenalina surgiendo." Outside, the alley greeted him like a lifeline. He heard footsteps behind him, felt the pressure rise like water about to overflow. A shout rang out, and without looking back, he sprinted down the street, the chaos trailing behind. But his escape cut short as a scream echoed through the night, a familiar voice that twisted his stomach into knots. "Lucas!" It was Sarah, desperation laced with pain. He spun around, racing back, heart thumping like a war drum. The scene unfolded like a nightmare. More figures crowded around her now. They were everywhere, swirling in a chaotic dance of urgency. "Get away from her!" Lucas roared, lungs burning, fists clenched. The thugs turned, ready to strike. But a sudden blast of light blinded him. Whew! Powerful headlights swept across the scene as a vehicle screamed into the alley, sirens wailing, slicing through the tension like a knife. Lucas shielded his eyes. "What's happening?" Then something swung around, a figure leaping from the vehicle, leading the chaotic charge. He wore a tactical vest, face obscured by a helmet. Get down! Move! It was the last thing Lucas heard before a volley of gunfire erupted. His heart dropped. He instinctively threw himself to the ground, mind racing. The air thick with gun smoke, he crawled closer to Sarah, fear wrapping around him like a vice. "Lucas, no!" Sarah's voice cracked, filled with panic. But he couldn't stay away. Before he could reach her, the chaos twisted again. The figure moved with practiced efficiency, dispatching the approaching thugs. Then, everything tilted into slow motion. One thug lunged, and the stunning realization washed over Lucas like ice water. The figure didn't flinch as the gun swung toward him. It was Joe. His heart stopped. "Joe!" The name tore from his throat. "What are you doing?" But Joe didn't answer. The flash of cold steel caught the light as he took a single, sharp breath. "Lucas, it's not what you think!" And then came another sound, a sharp crack followed by a chorus of gasps. The figure in the tactical vest snapped back. Confusion faded into horror as everyone froze. Lucas's palms became clammy. Yo crumpled de grand, de realización crashing over Lucas like a tidal wave. Everything spun out of control in an instant. Why, Joe? He didn't recognize his own voice as it broke, the words spilling out like shattered glass. But Joe didn't answer. Instead, he looked up, eyes wide, something swirling deep within, pain, regret, and betrayal. And that's when Lucas felt it, a piece of his world splintering, everything he thought he knew, crumbling like a house of cards. His empire, his choices, his past, now tangled in betrayal. "Lucas!" The crowd buzzed around him. Whispers of judgment and confusion rose like a frantic chorus. "What's going on?" Dread pooled in his stomach as an overwhelming truth settled over him. "What have I done?" As every cinco alrededor en el caos. Lucas sabía que se acercaba al fin de todo, pasado, presente y futuro colisándose. Podía oír contra seres confiados el pulso de la ciudad alrededor. ¿Qué realidad entonces le había tocado? ¿Y qué verdad engañadora le iba acercada en las sombras? Lucas se entró en su mover instantáneo. El caos de la ciudad se desaparecía ante su impacto de Joe. Con la ibera de donde le vete, Joe realmente genó. Anserea, una voz que supera por detrás, mandando chillos espanto. Lucas volvió a ver una mujer, sus rostros obscurecidas por un pantalón llevado abajo. Es tiempo de saber la verdad. ¿Quién eres? Lucas apazú, los ojos furados alrededor para ayuda que no llegaba. ¿No das cuenta de lo que hay? Si no, eso es muy profundo. That call? It's the start of a storm, Lucas. With a shaking hand, he accepted the incoming call. Hello? The world felt like it was spinning. Lucas, it's Lisa. The voice on the other end was familiar, yet laced with tension. You need to listen carefully. Something happened. Something big. He tried to focus, but Joe's gaze lingered in his mind. What's happened? Lucas demanded, tension coiling in his chest. There was a report. Something about the night you think no one remembers. Her voice broke. I didn't want to bring this up, but it's all coming to light. The police, they found evidence, and not just the kind linked to the warehouse. Evidence? Lucas echoed, devastation settling like lead in his gut. Yeah, photos, people who were there before they're going public. The hard thump of Lucas's heart echoed in his ears. "You're lying. You can't just—" "I wish I were," Lisa's voice cracked, desperation spilling through. "You don't understand. They know about Joe. They're putting everything together, and they're looking at you." The crowd surged around him, voices blending into a loud roar. Lucas saw blurred faces, and for a moment, everything felt surreal. "No, this can't be happening!" Then it hit him. Joe, the secret between them. Lucas felt trapped, a heavy fog settling deep within. "Lucas, listen to me!" Lisa's frantic voice pulled him back to reality. "Your family's name is at stake. If this goes public—" A sudden crash broke through the chatter, a sound that silenced the street. Lucas whipped around just as a figure stumbled, collapsing near a street vendor. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Call 911!" someone shouted, but Lucas was already moving. He approached, heart pounding. As he knelt, the figure turned, and his breath caught. It was Joe, eyes wide in panic, blood trickling down his temple. You have to—" "Joe!" Lucas cried, fear gripping his throat. "What happened?" Joe clutched his side, breath hitching. "They're coming for you, Lucas. They're not just after me." His voice was barely a whisper, but it throbbed with urgency. "It's bigger than both of us." The crowd thickened, people pushing for a glimpse of the commotion. Whispers erupted, accusations simmering beneath the surface. What is he saying? Is that Joe? Lucas's own confusion morphed into dread. This was the moment everything could unravel. He locked eyes with Joe, who grimaced in pain. "You have to choose now," he rasped, clutching Lucas's sleeve. "Face it, or let it consume you." Suddenly, sirens blared in the distance, growing louder. Panic clawed at Lucas as his mind raced. The call! Joe's warning! Now this! What if it was all connected? What if the darkness he thought he'd left behind was just the beginning? Before he could respond, Joe slumped forward, his grip loosening, and the crowd gasped again. The sirens closed in, and Lucas felt time slow. What was the truth? Why had this all spiraled out of control so quickly? He glanced around. Every face watched, every judgment felt. "I can't lose everything now," he whispered, desperation clawing at his voice. His empire, his entire life, hung in the balance. Then Joe's eyes flickered, filled with haunting clarity. "It's not just you." The world blurred again, and for a moment, nothing mattered but the truth hidden in shadows. What lay ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The storm was only beginning. Lucas stood there, heart racing, unable to shake the weight of Joe's words. The city pulsed around him, life buzzing, but his world felt like it was unraveling. He glanced down at his phone again. The unknown caller. The heaviness in his chest grew heavier. Then it happened. A loud crash echoed through the street, silencing the chatter and the hustle. Blinking in shock, Lucas turned his gaze towards the sound. A city bus had lost control, careening off course, people scattering like leaves in the wind. It smashed into a storefront, glass exploding outward like shrapnel. "Get back!" someone shouted, panic slicing through the crowd. People screamed, some ducked, others cried out for loved ones. Lucas's breath hitched. The chaos erupted like a bomb. Shattered glass, glinting like diamonds in the sunlight. Sirens wailing in the distance. His instincts kicked in. He had to move. He rushed toward the scene, instincts flaring to life as he pushed through the gathering crowd. Fear drummed in his ears. He needed to help, to see. But as he neared the wreckage, he spotted a figure slumped against the fallen debris. His heart dropped. It was Joe. The man was motionless, blood trickling from a gash on his forehead, the light in his eyes dimming. Something primal surged in Lucas. He knelt beside Joe, shaking him gently. "Joe, stay with me. Don't you dare leave." But Joe was fading, his breaths shallow. "Lucas," he rasped, reaching for him. It's all connected. What you did, I know." His voice cracked, the weight of unspoken truths hanging heavy in the air. "Shh, don't talk," Lucas urged, panic twisting in his gut. He could feel the heat of the crowd, the stares like daggers. He built a life away from this man, yet here they were, fated to collide again at the worst of times. Behind them. The chaos escalated. Police and paramedics arrived, bustling around like a swarm. An officer yelled for everyone to step back, but Lucas couldn't move. He was anchored by fear and guilt. What if Joe didn't make it? What if he took that secret to the grave? Joe's eyes locked onto Lucas, desperation mingling with something else. "Lucas, the night at the warehouse." His voice was a whisper, pleading. "You don't understand. It wasn't just you." A chill ran down Lucas's spine. What then? He leaned closer, trying to comprehend, his breath shallow. Suddenly, an explosion of sound. A shout, then a gunshot, rang out, splitting the air. Gasps echoed. Chaos erupted again. The crowd recoiled, panic swelling. Lucas instinctively shielded Joe with his body. He felt something warm spill over his hands. Blood? His heart raced. Time slowed. He glanced behind him, and a figure emerged. Dark clothes, face obscured by a hood. Joe's eyes widened in fear. "No, you can't!" A second shot fired off, and this time it was Joe who collapsed against him, the life slipping from his body like sand through fingers. Lucas's mind went blank. Nothing made sense. All he could feel was cold, crushing fear. "Call an ambulance!" he screamed. But the sound of his voice got lost in the uproar. Joe's eyes were empty now, a haunting reminder of everything that could unravel. The figure turned and vanished into the throng of people, leaving Lucas with the remnants of his shattered past and a life that could spiral into darkness at any moment. A sick realization dawned on him. This was bigger than him. The life he'd fought for, the lies he'd buried, everything was teetering on the edge. Reality hit him hard, raw and brutal. Who was he really now? What did he have left? Lucas blinked back tears, knowing that the truth wasn't just a reminder of his past. It was an anchor, pulling him toward a storm he couldn't escape. He needed answers, and fast. Lucas stood frozen, torn between denial and the ugly truth clawing at his soul. The city roared around him, indifferent. He fought for control, but the storm inside him rumbled louder. His phone buzzed again, a pulse throbbing against his palm. He glanced at the screen, unsure whether to answer. Then he saw it, a new message notification. His heart dropped. The message read, Meet me at the warehouse. I have proof. Joe's eyes locked onto Lucas's. A flicker of concern showed beneath his worn expression. You have to go. But before Lucas could respond, his phone slipped from his fingers, falling to the pavement. The screen shattered, scattering shards like his thoughts. Panic set in. He swiped at the ground, steadying himself against the wall. "Lucas?" Joe urged, his whisper now urgent. In that moment, something shifted in the crowd. A woman screamed, piercing through the city's noise. Lucas turned, barely processing, as people around him snapped their heads toward a sudden commotion. A man, clad in a black hoodie, charged past, clutching something. A bag or a box. Lucas couldn't tell. He crashed into the nearest street vendor, knocking over stacks of bottled drinks, the bottles shattering, glass splintering, chaos erupting. Something bright glinted in his hand, metallic, slick, and deadly. A gun. Lucas's chest tightened, breath caught. Fear squeezed his lungs, stark and heavy. But just as quickly, the man darted away, leaving Lucas gasping on the ground. Joe was there, eyes wide, breathing hard. Then a shot rang out, echoing through the street like thunder. People screamed, scattering like leaves in a storm. Lucas's heart dropped as his instincts kicked in. He scrambled to his feet, adrenaline coursing through him. "Joe, we need to move!" But when he turned, Joe wasn't behind him. He was staring at the other end of the street, where a figure stood still. Another man, older and somehow familiar. His face was shrouded in the distance, but the stance was unmistakable. "Dad?" Lucas whispered, shock slamming into him. Joe caught the hesitation, tension snapping in the air. "Lucas!" he warned, voice shaking. The man nodded slowly, acknowledging Lucas, but his eyes dark, unreadable. Then he raised the hand as if signaling. "No!" Joe shouted, face pale. Loud sirens wailed in the background, growing closer. People scrambled, panic painted in their eyes. The cacophony enveloped them, a tidal wave of urgency. This wasn't just about Lucas's past anymore. This was bigger. As Lucas took a step toward the man, a wave of realization hit him. The truth about that warehouse night was tangled in everything. The crime, the secrets, his family. This wasn't just about Joe anymore. Then another shot. A piercing sound cut through the air again. Lucas turned. Joe was hit. The world went silent, a cruel pause. Lucas dropped to his knees, despair freezing him in place. Joe crumpled beside him, blood pooling against the pavement. "Why?" Lucas choked out, desperation tearing through him. But Joe wasn't just the frayed link to Lucas's past. The truth trembled in the air, shocking enough to leave him breathless. As the sirens neared, Lucas felt the ground shift beneath him. Everything he'd built was still waiting to crumble. And now, so was everything he thought he knew about his own life. Lucas knelt on the pavement, the warm pool of blood spreading beneath Joe, and everything around him began to blur. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Panic surged in his chest, an unbearable weight pushing down on him. The world felt heavy, like it was sinking into darkness. "Why, Joe?" Lucas's voice trembled, desperation clawing at his throat. "You shouldn't have. Just listen." Joe's voice was weak, strained. He struggled to breathe, eyes unfocused but pleading. "It's all connected. They're not coming for you, not just you." "What do you mean?" Lucas pressed, fear choking his words. "What are you talking about?" The sirens grew louder, overwhelming the chaos of the crowd. Faces twisted in shock and horror, whispers swirling like lost echoes. Joe's eyes flickered, and for a moment, it seemed he might slip away. "Lucas, promise me you'll dig deeper. It's about your family, your father, not just me." Before Lucas could respond, a faint shout cut through the commotion. A tall figure charged across the street. Everything seemed to move in slow motion. The commanding presence of a police officer caught his eye. "Clear the area! Move back!" "Lucas, darte su cara a Joe. Please, está conmigo." Suddenly, el noise de la calle fue fundido, que parece un extraño silencio sofocante. Entonces llegó un escaparate de gallina, como un disparo. El corazón de Lucas despertó, huciéndole el miedo, saliendo instintivamente Camaro. Pero Lucas no se movía, no estaba consciente de luz. Desde alguna parte de lo lejos, una figura emergió, una mujer salvaje, entrando hacia ellos. "Lucas, I've been looking for you." It was Sarah, but something about her presence felt off. Urgent, panicked. "Get back!" she yelled, eyes darting. "It's not safe." "What are you talking about?" Lucas shouted, torn between staying with Joe and helping Sarah. But the sight of blood pooling was overwhelming. "The cops aren't who you think!" she screamed. But before Lucas could respond, Joe's labored breathing faltered. "Lucas!" Joe rasped, clutching his chest. "They're coming for you, because—" An explosion of sound erupted. A deafening blast shook the ground, and the air filled with smoke. Lucas instinctively shielded Joe with his body as chaos erupted again. Tears pooled in Lucas's eyes, helplessness filling his soul as the world around him twisted. Then a figure emerged from the haze, a man, dressed in a sharp suit. "Lucas!" The voice was deep, reverberating through the panic. "We need to go, now!" The man stepped closer, revealing a face Lucas knew all too well. It was his father. "Dad?" Lucas stammered, confusion washing over him, battling against the storm of emotions. "Move!" his father commanded, but Lucas couldn't. Joe, eyes locked on Lucas, gasped. "Your father! He's not who he says he is!" "Lucas, please!" In an instant, Lucas's mind reeled. Everything he believed about family, loyalty, it all shifted, rippling like shattered glass. His father stepped forward, urgency in his movements. "He's wrong, Lucas! You're in danger!" But before he could finish, a bullet whizzed past them, narrowly missing. The crowd screamed, chaos exploding again. "Run!" Joe shouted, holding Lucas's gaze just a beat longer, his look deep, filled with unspoken truths. "Joe!" Lucas cried, panic gripping him. "Go!" It was the last thing Joe managed before the life left his eyes. Time froze. The world around him collapsed into a haze of shock. Lucas felt himself breaking. His heart, his empire, everything unraveling like a ball of thread. "Lucas!" his father yelled, pulling him away. But as they stumbled back, the weight of everything shifted. The truth hung heavy in the air. His father was hiding something. And now, the lengths they would go to keep secrets buried became painfully clear. What other truths lay hidden? What dark legacy was Lucas truly a part of? As he ran, a new storm brewed inside, filled with dread, confusion, and a burning urge to unearth the reality he had been shielded from. And still, sirens echoed, closing in, a haunting reminder that the worst was far from over. Lucas sprinted down the street, his heart racing like a runaway train. His father's presence loomed behind him, urgency anchoring his every step. "You need to listen to me! We don't have time!" But the words felt heavy, like lead. He couldn't shake the image of Joe's lifeless body just moments ago. The world around him blurred as sirens wailed, people screamed, and chaos enveloped him anew. "Get in the car!" his father shouted, and Lucas hesitated, confusion twisting his gut. "It's not safe! We have to go!" As they rounded a corner, he caught sight of Sarah, yelling from the other side of the street. "Lucas!" she screamed, fear etched in her eyes. "They're after you! You can't trust anyone!" The revelation hit like a punch to the gut. What did she mean? Trust anyone? Glancing back at his father, he felt an icy chill crawl down his spine. "Lucas, don't listen to her," his father snapped. "We need to leave now." "Why?" Lucas shot back, his voice rising above the commotion. "What's going on? You're not telling me something." In that heartbeat, everything shattered. Just as Lucas opened his mouth to question more, the ground erupted beneath them. An explosion rocked the street, a burst of blinding light followed by a wave of force that sent Lucas sprawling. He hit the ground hard, the world spinning. The force knocked the air from his lungs, leaving him gasping. He blinked against the brightness, trying to piece together the chaos unfolding around him. Smoke billowed, hiding everything from view, and people screamed, their voices a cacophony of panic. Then, through the haze, he caught sight of his father, standing frozen, eyes wide, shock etched across his face. "Lucas!" he yelled, but Lucas couldn't hear it through the ringing in his ears. As the dust began to settle, a figure emerged from the smoke, moving with a predatory grace. The light of the street lamps caught the gleam of something sharp in their hand. Lucas squinted, dread pooling in his stomach. "Move!" "Ha!" he shouted, scrambling to his feet just as the figure lunged toward them. But this time, it wasn't the faceless hooded figure from before. It was another person entirely, a woman with wild eyes and a frantic expression. "Lucas, I found it!" she screamed, holding something aloft, a small device glinting menacingly in the dim light. Panic ignited in Lucas's chest. "What is that?" "The truth! Everything is in here!" she shouted, desperation punctuating her voice. "They're using it against you!" Before he could process it, his father stepped forward, eyes locked on the device. "No! You don't understand!" But Lucas did. In that moment, everything flipped. Had his father been a part of it all along? The empire he'd built, the lies behind their family, for the first time, doubt gripped him hard, paralyzing. Just then, another explosion rumbled in the distance, and Lucas flinched. The woman took a step closer, urgency in her eyes. "It's all connected, Lucas. You need to confront what's being hidden." Time warped. Suddenly, the pieces fell into place, shifting like sand. Who could he trust? The people he thought had his back, were they all linked in this tangled web of deceit? "Lucas!" his father shouted, the panic in his voice escalating. "She's lying! You don't know what you're dealing with." In that moment, everything he thought he knew shattered. Was he the target? Or worse, was he just a pawn in a game far more destructive than he ever imagined? As he opened his mouth to respond, a gunshot rang out nearby, cutting through the air like a hot knife. The woman screamed and chaos erupted again, a stampede of people fleeing, leaving Lucas breathless and paralyzed. A desperate urgency bubbled up inside him. He had to make a choice: stand with his father, or trust the woman holding the key to his future. As he weighed his options, he couldn't shake the feeling of eyes watching from the shadows. Secrets were buried, and the truth was becoming a weapon against him. And with every heartbeat, the question grew more urgent. What hidden alliances lay in wait to shatter his world? Lucas felt the world spin as chaos engulfed him. He struggled to his feet, adrenaline surging. The woman with the device was still holding it aloft. "You don't understand. This is bigger than you know." But all he could focus on was Joe, his friend, lying on the ground. The sirens wailed closer, shadows dancing around them. Lucas felt a tightness in his chest. "Joe! Stay with me. Fight." "Lucas," Joe whispered, breath ragged. "It's not your fault." His voice faded, eyes glazing over. Time stood still. Lucas knelt beside him, anger and fear swirling inside him. He wanted to scream, to rage against the unfairness of it all. "No! You can't leave me, Joe!" Tears stung his eyes as he gripped Joe's hand, trying to hold on to the warmth slipping away. "I need you. We need to uncover the truth together." But Joe's breaths grew fainter. Lucas could see the spark of life dimming. The woman stepped closer, her device still flickering. "You have to trust me, Lucas. This is your chance." Before she could finish, a heavy presence loomed behind them. Lucas spun to see his father rushing forward, a determined look on his face. "We need to go, now." "Not without Joe!" Lucas cried, fear gripping his throat. He glanced at Joe, who struggled to lift his head. "I can't," Joe gasped. "You have to." "Promise." "Promise what?" Lucas shouted, desperation spilling out. "What do I have to do?" But the sirens roared closer, and Lucas's father grabbed him urgently. "We're out of time, Lucas!" With every ounce of strength, Lucas yanked free. "No, I won't abandon him!" But as he turned back to Joe, he felt the ground shake, more explosions rumbling in the distance. "Your family is in danger, Lucas. We have to move," his father insisted, voice hardening. Torn between loyalty and fear, Lucas felt the weight of the world crashing down on him. "You've kept so many secrets. How can I trust you?" The air crackled with tension. The crowd grew silent, all eyes on the unfolding chaos. Lucas glanced at Joe one more time. "I'll find out what happened, I promise!" With a final look filled with regret and hope, Joe whispered, "Be strong." The moment hung like a fragile thread. Then the woman shouted, "Now! Grab it!" Lucas grabbed the device from her and bolted toward his father, heart racing with uncertainty. Just then, another shot rang out through the air, sending everyone into a frenzy. "Lucas!" Sarah's voice broke through the panic. She rushed towards him, breathless and wild. "You have to do something!" As they weaved through the escaping crowd, fear flooded Lucas's mind. "Wait, what if I can't face it?" "You have to," Sarah insisted, locking eyes with him, determination etched on her face. "Don't run from it. Embrace the truth." But as they stumbled away, A heaviness weighed on Lucas's heart. What truths lay buried beneath the surface? The shadows cast by the fading light surrounded them, echoing with the whispers of everything left unknown. "Lucas!" His father's voice cut through the noise, urging him forward. And in that moment, just as hope ignited, darkness loomed ahead. Would Lucas become what his legacy demanded, or would he forge a new path, guided by the remnants of those he lost? With a racing heart, he stepped into the unknown. Now, as the dust settled and the sirens faded into the distance, one thing became clear: the story wasn't finished. You have to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the upcoming exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Don't wait even a second longer to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this ending. Your support matters now more than ever.